And as the devil's voice fades into the echoes of the night, Marco finds himself wandering through memories and hidden fears. Sitting on the worn-out armchair in his living room, he watches the shadows dance on the walls, as if they were telling forgotten stories of a past that he himself had tried to bury. The images of a life lived quickly and without reflection invade him. Moments of spontaneous joy, but also days in which emptiness and despair had been silent companions. That night, something inside him awakens. It is as if, in that moment, the small daily concessions were transformed into signs of a slow betrayal of his soul. It is not just the accumulation of small lies or compromises, but the silent weight of a conscious choice to ignore God's call. And then, in an impulse that surprises even him, Marco decides to take a journey inside himself, a path that will lead him to confront every dark corner of his being. He begins to remember the evenings spent laughing with friends, the warmth of a sincere hug, and the joy of an unexpected encounter. But these memories, so precious, are soon accompanied by other images. That time when he lost his way, confused between the illusion of success and the true meaning of happiness. Those days when money and power had seduced his spirit, making him forget the small daily blessings. The mind races quickly, and each memory becomes an indispensable piece to understanding the complexity of a faith put to the test. But it is not only the past that makes Marco tremble. The present, with its temptations and deceptions, also makes its way into his awareness. He realizes that the devil, in all his cunning, never acts with a single blow, but rather sows small seeds of doubt and desperation that, if not faced, grow in silence until they become imposing trees that obscure the light of the divine. And precisely at this juncture, Marco understands that his faith, the true one, is not something to be invoked only in moments of crisis, but a constant companion, to be carefully cultivated every day. So he decides to go out, to look for answers in the street lights, where the street lights seem to be a call to something more authentic. Walking through the streets of the neighborhood, he meets familiar and unknown faces, each with their own story, their own secrets. There is a certain beauty in that whole, in that diversity that speaks of hopes and struggles, of mistakes and rebirths. Every person who meets his gaze tells him, even if silently, that it is never too late to put your thoughts and priorities in order. In a small cafe, Marco sits down next to an elderly woman whose face marked by time exudes wisdom and a calm that is difficult to explain. With a smile, she tells him, "My son, life is made of scars and light. You cannot erase the past, but you can learn from it and make every day a new beginning." Those simple and genuine words seem to dissolve for a moment the knot of uncertainty that was squeezing him. It is as if fate had arranged that meeting precisely to remind him that faith is not measured in ritual gestures, but in the ability to accept and forgive, especially oneself. As time passes slowly, Marco reflects on the concept of sin and redemption. It is not easy to admit one's mistakes, he knows it well, but it is precisely in this sincere confrontation with oneself that one finds the way to an inner rebirth. He realizes that every small compromise, every lie told to justify oneself, is a step closer to an abyss that, if not faced, becomes an insidious trap. And then he decides. He will no longer be a prisoner of his own weaknesses. He will decide to put truth back at the center. That truth that springs from the relationship with God, understood not as an empty ritual, but as a profound dialogue with the divine, with the love that embraces everything. The journey will not be easy. There will be times when doubt will knock on the door again, trying to make him return to the old routine, to that illusory security that hides behind the masks of daily convenience. But Marco has understood that every fall is an opportunity to get up again, to learn to look beyond appearances and to seek the light even in the darkest places. And so, with a new spirit, he begins to plan small daily rituals that can strengthen his connection with the divine. A sincere prayer in the morning, a moment of silence to listen to his heart, a gesture of kindness towards those who need comfort. On that journey, Marco discovers that he is not the only one fighting against the dangers of evil. The streets are full of people who, like him, are looking for a deep meaning in the midst of the chaos of modern life. Some have found in meditation a way to find themselves, some in music a universal language that speaks directly to the soul, some in nature the secret to finding lost harmony. And in this sharing, Marco rediscovers the value of community, the power of mutual support that even in the darkest moments can illuminate the path. He stops to listen to the voices, to catch fragments of stories that intertwine with his own. Each story is an invitation not to give up, to seek the hidden meaning behind every little suffering. There is a story of a young man who, after years of solitude, has learned to see God in every smile, in every kind gesture. There is the story of a mother who, despite the difficulties, has been able to keep hope alive for the good of her children. All these testimonies, so different and yet so similar, offer Marco the awareness that authentic faith is born from the ability to accept reality with all its nuances, without hiding behind illusions that the devil loves to exploit so much. In a corner of the city, where time seems to have stopped, Marco comes across a small church, not imposing or spectacular, but full of that warmth that only a place of prayer can emanate. Crossing the threshold, he feels as if the weight of every sin and every hesitation is lifted, even if only for a brief moment. The walls tell of past eras, of moments of joy and pain, of souls who have sought comfort and found hope. And right there, in that suspended moment, Marco feels embraced by an invisible force, the same force that reminds him that it is never too late to change, to find the path to the light. As he leaves the church, the cold of the night seems less biting, and the stars, one after the other, begin to draw the path towards a new beginning. Marco understands that every step, however small, is an act of courage. And so, with an open mind and heart, he decides to embrace life with a renewed awareness, ready to face every challenge and to recognize that, despite everything, God's love is always there, silent and constant, ready to guide him towards a better tomorrow. Reflecting on all this, he understands that the real fight is not against an external evil, but the internal one, that daily battle to keep faith alive, to not be fooled by small pitfalls that, if accumulated, can turn into chains. It is a fight that requires honesty, courage, and the ability to accept that, sometimes, the path to redemption passes precisely through the awareness of one's own mistakes and the will to start over every day. As he walks along the street, Marco feels part of a larger plan, of a story as old as time itself. It is as if each step brings him back to that fundamental truth. Faith is not a static condition, but a continuous journey made of falls and rises, of moments of confusion and intuitions that illuminate the soul. And precisely in that cyclicality, in that constant search for balance, lies the beauty of an existence lived in full awareness. In the end, Marco decides that the true antidote against evil is not an external fight, but the ability to transform every weakness into a strength, every doubt into a challenge to overcome. With a heart that beats fast and a clear mind, he promises himself to never forget that precious lesson, that evil, however subtle, does not have the power to extinguish the light of faith if it is cultivated with constancy, sincerity, and love. And so, in that silent night, under the starry mantle, Marco glimpses the reflection of a new life, a life in which every small gesture, every act of courage, is a brick that builds a bridge towards a tomorrow of hope and redemption. This new beginning is not a sign of perfection, but the awareness that despite the falls and pitfalls, one can always go back up, rediscovering the value of every single moment. And in this journey, faith becomes a beacon, a luminous guide that even when all seems lost, illuminates the way towards a horizon in which good, finally, triumphs over every shadow.